Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. So this whole trip to Texas has made me rethink about my priorities in life. So earlier this week I was getting upset about the weather, but I've come to realize this trip was more than just about the eclipse. And it's made me rethink about some priorities in life. See, I really got to unwind these last couple of days. I just had a difficult situation, actually, and I'm so glad I advocated for myself without getting angry. What had happened was I was sitting in the cafeteria of a grocery store, and the owner was upset that I was loitering there, and I introduced myself, and it really upset me because he interrupted me while I was in the middle of recording a video. But I quickly explained myself, and he told me he doesn't care that I have nowhere to go during this eclipse, and I explained to him, but I wasn't causing any trouble for anybody, was I? And I'm so glad I advocated for myself. I made him feel guilty about what he was doing. I made the other people at the cafeteria kind of just give him a dirty look. So I'm so glad I advocated for myself. There are two lessons to take away from what happened this afternoon. Number one is that I really liked how I advocated for myself without getting angry, right? But to be logical. And second, I learned that there are a lot of people who don't care about your situation. So next time at work, if my colleague wants me to fill in for, they have COVID or some kind of childcare issue, maybe I shouldn't shoulder all of that, right? After all, when I go out in the real world, some people won't shoulder my problems, right? Even though I wasn't causing any trouble at the store, right? And so it made me really rethink. Next time there's a situation like my colleague asking me to, when I was at Washington Tech, to donate my vacation time or whatever, maybe I need to put up a little bit of resistance, right? And maybe not say it out loud that it's not my problem, but at least get something out of it, right? Let's get something in for me, right? It's kind of tricky because my colleague obviously didn't plan to get COVID, right? It happened overnight, and all of a sudden all of our discussions are centered around that, right? Nobody wants to hear, in the middle of asking for time off to deal with COVID, nobody wants to hear, well, what about this, right? Can you help me with this issue? Or actually, part of the reason I helped my colleague was that she was Filipino. I was hoping she would hook me up with a girl, and maybe her sister, or maybe a niece or something. I was thinking of that, and I let my imagination run too wild that time, right? All right, so something to think about. But other than that, some other priorities I was thinking about was that this whole trip, the main benefit has been that I got to eat and sleep at my own timetable, right? And I got to, part of the reason I was so good at advocating for myself today was that I didn't have to worry if somebody local that I know will see me doing this, right? So, for example, my colleagues, or one of my students, or somebody that I also have a different life with. Or not everybody knows that I like to advocate for, in this case, a disability. I couldn't really eat anything that was being served at that cafeteria. Nobody knows that, right? And nobody knows that I like to advocate for that. But what was really nice was that I spoke to him man to man, right? This is what I have a difficulty with, and I let the other people in there hear, and I think most people were on my side. And I also got the front end of that on camera because I was in the middle of recording a video and I never hit the stop button. So that was great. That was great. Maybe I'll think about uploading that. But certainly I could use it to raise a little bit of awareness. But I got to rethink about how I handle going on vacation in the future. For one thing, this trip was really nice in that I got to sleep on my own timetable, but I wish I had more resources for this trip, right? I drove here and I didn't have a hotel room, and the trip could have played a little bit more differently if I had some more resources for it, right? So it's going to make me rethink about my career path, and I let too many things slide in the past, which is part of the reason why I don't have all the resources for this trip, right? In terms of not speaking up for myself, in terms of shouldering all my colleagues' problems, in terms of other matters. Okay, hopefully next time we have the eclipse in 2049 or something like that. Hopefully I'll have a flight, I'll have a hotel room. I won't be, well, I'll still advocate for myself if I run into difficulty out there. I think everybody here in Kerrville is on edge because of all the tourism surrounding the eclipse. Right? Had I traveled here any other time, I probably wouldn't have run into that. I almost ran into trouble with border control. I got to do some reading to find out how to avoid going through border control on I-10 on my way home, right? Because that was definitely a harrowing experience. I had a lot of stuff in my car. What's really funny is that border control, what's all this in your car? And I explained I was an artist, and I was scared to death because I've learned that people have had money confiscated from them. I have, most of my stuff is in my car, right, including some coin collections and all that. And the guy probably looked at all the sculptures and all that, and he looked at the silver coins, and he thought that I was melting he probably assumed that the coins were what I was melting to make that stuff, and so he probably didn't think very much of it, because most people don't think very highly of artists, unfortunately. In this case it was fortunate, but most of the time it's kind of unfortunate, right? That was kind of funny how it played out, but of course ideal to avoid that. It got my heart racing and all that, and that was kind of fun too. I've learned to just laugh off these things, because if I don't, I tend to get angry and defensive and vengeful sometimes, right? In the past, I've gotten vengeful over stuff like that. I do tutoring, and I used to have a problem with people canceling on me last minute, right? And I would get really vengeful. I would slander their name on whatever platform they were using, or after what had happened was this guy canceled on me. And after I finished working with him, 3 months later, I started using a different name to slander him. And so he didn't know what hit him and all that. And so it certainly didn't feel any good to do it. I was just upset, and cancellation policies are also tricky too, because I learned the hard way I had to have a policy, but then I learned parents and sometimes the students would manipulate the policy. So for example, I would say that you need to cancel at least 24 hours before the tutoring begins, right? So maybe the tutoring might be 5 to 6 or something like that, and then the parent would say that can they start a little bit later at 5:30? And they know I can't stay around till 6:30, right? And so I would say, no, that's not going to work for me. And in their mind, I'm the one who's canceling. They don't have to pay any fee, right? Or they would just use some kind of weird way to manipulate, right? Emergencies were also a favorite, right? All of a sudden, their pet is ill, or the kid injured himself playing sports and all that, and then I would see the kid 2 days later with no sign of any sort of injury, right? And that's frustrating, not only for me, but I feel badly for the kid who's being lied about, right? The parents lying that their kid had a sports injury. It's almost like the kid himself is also being victimized, right? Or the pet, or whatever family member is involved. Or I just learned that it was a very tricky situation to navigate. Anyway, so I would get upset. Nowadays, I just laugh about it. If the parent says something like their kids injured themselves playing sports, I'll wish them well. How's the sports going and all that, and basically make them feel like shit that they even thought about that, right? Without being vengeful about that. Just like how I made the guy at the grocery store probably feel like shit today, right? And so he must be worried that it might cost him his job and all that, because I didn't realize the camera was still rolling, and after I had agreed to leave, I looked, oh my god, my camera's still recording, you were on video that whole time, and in his mind he probably went, shit, right? This is the Peter Lik Show! Bum 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 bum. The Peter Lik Show! Bum 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 bum.